Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Pakistan has a population of about 170 million. 95% are Muslim and a little more than 3% are Christian. To tell us more about the situation of Christians in Pakistan, it's my great privilege to welcome today Mr. Shaheryar Gill, the Associate Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Shaheryar, thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Shaheryar, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You were born and raised in Pakistan.
Yes, I was born in a Christian family. I was raised in Pakistan, went to a Christian law school in Korea, and then in the United States, and now I'm working with the American Center for Law and Justice as an associate counsel in Virginia.
How did you come to this line of work?
I used to work with a human rights organization in Pakistan before going to law school, and we represented, our organization provided legal assistance to the persecuted minorities in Pakistan, especially Christians. And during my work with that organization, I saw a lot of people in Pakistan being persecuted because of their religion and discriminated because of their belief. So I started developing an interest in law, and just one day decided to go to law school.
Can you tell me what kind of discrimination we're talking about?
Yes, in Pakistan, people are persecuted because of their religion. Many people are targeted by the blasphemy laws, the notorious blasphemy laws that were promulgated in 1986 by a dictator, a military dictator, General Zia-ul-Haq. And under those laws, a lot of people have been persecuted in the past 2 decades or so.
What does blasphemy law mean? I mean, what are we talking about practically?
Basically, we are talking about if you say anything derogatory about Islam, you can be prosecuted. The most notorious of those laws is Section 295C of the Pakistan Penal Code, which states that anyone who by words either spoken or written or by visible representation defiles the sacred name of Prophet Muhammad shall be punished with death. And this is Section 295C, but we have other sections that prohibit desecration of Quran and desecration or desecration of a religious place, or even saying derogatory words about other religious personalities.
Now you say this affects Christians as well as Muslims. How could this affect a Muslim, for example?
It does not matter whether a person is a Christian or a Muslim. Once you say anything derogatory about Islam, another person who hears those terms could go to a police station and file a blasphemy complaint against you. But you have to remember that these laws are not only used because of the alleged blasphemies, but because they were personal dispute between two people, and one person decides to teach another a lesson, and he goes to the police station and files criminal charges against the other.
So these laws are instrumentalized for personal gain, in fact.
Absolutely.
Do you have any concrete examples that your NGO has been involved with in terms of trying to help people who have encountered this problem with the blasphemy laws?
Well, we have recently in Pakistan, about 2 months ago, there was an attack in a village of Kasur by a Muslim mob, where hundreds of Muslims attacked a Christian village of 135 families. And the triggering event was blasphemy charge.
What happened?
There was a dispute between a Christian and a Muslim. A Christian was driving his tractor and he saw this motorbike standing in the middle of the road, and he asks the the owner of the motorbike to please move that so that he could pass. And the owner says to the Christian with the tractor that how could a chura order him what to do? Chura is a derogatory term for Christians, so he says, how could a chura order him? And on this, they had a little fight, and some people intervened, stopped the fight, and everybody goes home. After a few hours, this family, Muslim family, gathers other people, and they attacked the Christian family, beat them. The next day, they announced in the mosque that a Christian has desecrated the Quran. And a mob gathers, and they attacked 135 families of that village just because a Christian and a Muslim had a little fight before that.
So it can be easily politicized.
It is absolutely. It can be easily politicized. Muslims in Pakistan are very much, they cannot tolerate blasphemy against Islam. But we have to also remember that those incidents are not, as I have said earlier, that those incidents are not blasphemy, they are personal disputes. So people have to understand that they should at least first investigate what happens and sort out these personal disputes in the court of law, and rather than going to using blasphemy law for their own use.
You mentioned the word chura earlier, which is a derogatory word, as I understand, for Christians. What is the relation between Christians and Muslims in Pakistan?
In general, usually people live together in different areas. Christians are allowed to go to churches. We are allowed to have worship services. But when there's a dispute about the religion itself, then if there's an argument, or even beyond that, if you don't even have an argument, not a religious argument, but you have a personal dispute, the law is so easy to use. All you have to do is to go to a police station and register a complaint. Now, if you have a little dispute with me, I am not going to go to the police station, because the punishment for that would be just maybe a fine for committing a battery against me. But I know that if I register a complaint of blasphemy against you, then your whole life is ruined. Your family could be, your property could be vandalized. You could go to jail for life.
What would be the typical punishment for example, for blasphemy?
There are different punishments for different sections of the penal code under the blasphemy chapter. The most egregious punishment is death penalty if you say something about the Islamic prophet.
Has this ever been carried out?
It has never been carried out, but people have been sentenced to death. Originally, it was imprisonment for life or death penalty, but then in 1991, the Federal Sharia Court, which is Islamic court, they said that life sentence is not an appropriate punishment. So they said that only punishment that could be applied in blasphemy, blaspheming Prophet's name, could be death.
Now we've spoken a bit about the blasphemy laws. What other kind of discrimination do Christians face in Pakistan?
As I have mentioned, the word chura. Every Christian in his life has experienced that from his Muslim neighbors, his Muslim friends, or others. They call them with that derogatory term.
Is it because Christians are de facto seen as a second-class citizen?
It is. Actually, even the Constitution makes Christians or minorities second-class citizens, because one of the article in the Constitution says that the president cannot be non-Muslim. So as a Christian, I cannot run for the president. So automatically, by the Constitution, you are a second-class citizen. Now, the Constitution also gives you fundamental rights.
Yes.
Freedom of expression, freedom
yes.
of religion. But those freedoms are subject to reasonable restrictions. For example, Article 19 of the Constitution says, gives you freedom of expression, freedom of speech, but it is subject to reasonable restrictions such as glory of Islam or public order. Now, these laws have not basically fulfilled those purposes, those restrictions, the glory of Islam, let's say. From 1986, when the Blasphemy Laws, Section 295C was promulgated, up to 2009, there have been more than 900 cases of blasphemy. Now, instead of prohibiting, restricting incidents of blasphemy, these laws have increased number of blasphemies. So instead
everybody's taken the opportunity.
Exactly. So most of these cases have been brought under false allegations. Now, by bringing a false allegation, someone has committed blasphemy. So instead of protecting the glory of Islam, these laws have basically violated that glory or sanctity of a religion when people bring false charges against others.
Have you yourself encountered this kind of discrimination?
Well, not persecution in particular, but yes, discrimination. My friends have called me, my Muslim friends have called me Achura. And you see, that's really a historical term that was used for Hindu converts who converted to Christianity during the British rule in the subcontinent, because they were untouchables and were not treated well by Hindus. So a lot of Christians in the subcontinent are Hindu converts, Christian converts from Hinduism. So that term, we carry on that term, the term for Christians in particular, and that basically signifies us as low caste citizens.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned on the origins of Pakistan, because in 1947, when Pakistan was established, it was established as the home of the pure, the land of the pure. But at the same time, the first president stated that Christians should be free to visit their churches, to pray. And can Christians live their faith openly? Can they express their faith? Is there freedom of expression? I mean, one thing is freedom of worship, where you are confined to your compound, to your church, to your house, where you pray inside. But can Christians also express their faith openly on the street?
Well, I can tell people that I'm a Christian, but I cannot go and try to make someone a Christian, especially a Muslim. But you see, we don't have laws, anti-conversion laws in Pakistan, but the society in general would not tolerate a person getting converted.
What would happen? What would happen to, for example, what would happen to you as a Christian if you were encountered working to try and convert? And secondly, what could happen to a Muslim?
Well, there have been cases in the past, if I may recall. There have been cases where people have been killed for converting, or have been attacked by their fellow citizens just because they converted to Christianity, and then people got to know about that.
Have you, in your law cases that you have been working on with the American Center for Law and Justice, have you encountered also these questions of those Muslims, for example, who have been converts to Christianity and come to you for legal advice and legal support?
Not in particular, but we have cases. Before in Pakistan, when I was working in Pakistan, we had a number of blasphemy cases where we represented people, and also with my work with American Center for Law and Justice, we are basically providing legal assistance to Christian minorities in Pakistan. And recently, there was a case that we dealt in Pakistan where a pastor's son was accused of committing robbery by the local police. A number of people were arrested. Now, the police released everyone else. All the Muslims that were arrested, the police released them, but this guy was detained illegally. Well, not under, if they arrested him under the charges, that wouldn't be illegal, but then they tortured him in the prison, and they broke his backbone. And we are representing this young man, and he cannot walk. He cannot walk for his whole life now. His backbone is fractured from different places, and it is a terrible situation. Now, if you go bring charges against police, the police have threatened him that they would kill him if he tells the judge what happened. So we are dealing continuously with these cases where discrimination. Now, this is a case of discrimination. It's not a religious persecution, but the very fact that they released everyone else and they kept him and then they tortured him. Why don't you go take him to the court, bring formal charges, take him to the court, and then the courts decide. That's why we have the courts, to decide who is guilty or who is not. But the police is there to decide. Because he was a Christian, they thought, okay, that's fine.
It's extremely delicate what you're working with. It's very, very sensitive because it's addressing culture, it's addressing faith and the law under that particular culture. It must be tricky for you.
It is difficult. It worries sometimes your own security because you are dealing with the police, you're dealing with sometimes political people. And in a recent case in Gojra, where 8 or 9 people were killed, 6 were burned to death and 2 were shot. In that case, numerous Muslims have been accused of vandalizing and burning the properties and killing those.
This was also a Muslim-Christian situation, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It was a Muslim-Christian situation where one Christian family had a dispute with one Muslim family, and then the Muslim family decided to go public and then basically bring a formal a charge of desecration of Quran by against that family. Announcement in the mosque, and a mob gathers and they vandalize those Christians, their properties, they kill them, they burn everything they found.
Do you find that as the situation becomes more and more tense between the international, for example, there's problems in Iraq, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, is this having a repercussive effect on the local landscape between Christians and Muslims?
Right. You see, 20 years or more than 20 years of blasphemy law in Pakistan have taught people that punishment for insulting Islam is death. So rather than going to the courts, people have started taking the law into their own hands. Now, coming to your point, Islam is also a very community-oriented religion, which is a very good thing. But at the same time, when they see these wars against another Muslim state in Iran, in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, they feel a responsibility, a solidarity with those Muslims, and then they try to take revenge or retaliate against the local Christians because they represent their Christians. So they're basically American agents of Christianity. So that is one of the factors that I would say that that is important to consider, that why these increasing attacks, and in the past 3 months there have been 3 major attacks against Christians. These are major attacks where people have been killed, their properties have been destroyed.
Do you see an increasing trend?
It is increasing. Even after those attacks, the government has taken measures. The government has started judicial inquiries, have made promises to change the blasphemy law, have said that they would prosecute people, which has not been very effective. But at the same time, those attacks have not been stopped. Just a few days ago, a Christian was accused of of desecrating Quran, and he was killed in prison. He was strangled there, and the police is saying that he committed suicide.
We've been talking a lot about the sort of the difficulties, but there must also be stories where you have a lot of support between the Muslim and the Christian communities, or perhaps stories where Muslims have taken the Christians into their homes where they might have been otherwise attacked or under difficulty.
Yes, there are a lot of NGOs, Muslim NGOs. They're liberal. They want to help, but you see, at the same time, if they want to help Christians or other minorities, they are actually going against their fellow Muslims, and that also threatens their existence. So they're basically only Christian organizations represent victims of these attacks or in blasphemy cases. But at the same, also Muslim organizations, they come along with Christian organization, and they basically support Christians.
So organizations like yours, which play not only a legal role, but they also play a role of advocacy, which is important because it brings greater pressure to bear, for example, on the government, the Pakistani government, to respect their own laws and to encourage these laws in favor of all minorities within Pakistan?
Right. Well, we are providing, at the American Center for Law and Justice, we are providing legal assistance in Pakistan with a Pakistani-based organization that we have started working with. We also have written a petition to the United Nations, and we argued that basically all these incidents are violation of international law, and Pakistan is obligated to observe those international human rights laws. And yes, we are engaged in public discussions as well. And recently we had a meeting with the Pakistani embassy officials, and we basically educated them on what is going on. And I hope that they would do something to bring justice to those people who are attacking innocent citizens just on the basis of religion.
Now, many of the local Christians have more or less given up, I would say, and packed their belongings and have left. Why are young people leaving today, and what kind of a threat does this pose for the Christian community in Pakistan?
We need to empower the local Christians in Pakistan, and the way to do is education. Christian churches, we have Catholic and Anglican churches, they have the best school systems in Pakistan. They are responsible for providing the best kind of education that they can provide, but at the same time they are educating more Muslims than Christians. The problem with that is that if you don't educate Christians, they don't get good jobs. They stay illiterate, and then they don't get good jobs, and then they don't have influence in the society, and they become easy targets. So when they become easy targets, it's easy to exploit them. It's easy to attack anyone, because they cannot come after you. They can't retaliate. They cannot defend themselves.
Do you have hope? You see all these troubles, you see all these conflicts, you see all these difficulties which seem to be increasing as time goes by, and we don't know where it's going to end. Do you have hope for the Christian community and for your country?
I do have a hope. First, we need to be prayerful about these incidents. We need a lot of prayers for our Christian brothers and sisters in Pakistan, and also for the Muslim community there, that God would give them discernment and knowledge and a spirit of tolerance. And that, I believe, that only could be done by the power of Holy Spirit. And after that, we need to educate Christians. We need to empower the local Christians so that they could stand for themselves.
Shaheryar Gill, thank you very much for having been with us today on our program. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program. We've been speaking with Shaheryar Gill of the American Center for Law and Justice here in the United States. If you'd like to know more about the situation of Christians in Pakistan, I would ask you to look at the contact information that will be posted at the end of this program on your screen, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.